Okay, hello, welcome folks. We're coming to you live from the Game Research Lab at Tampere University for the next in our exciting series of OASIS Lunchtime Talks. And it's my pleasure to welcome today's speaker, Davide Giovanzana. So I'm going to introduce him and then he'll take it away. So Davide is a theatre director, theatre pedagogue and researcher based in Helsinki. His work draws on physical theatre, mask performance and object theatre. His most recent book, Performing Violence, published by Routledge, reconsiders the possibilities and limits of representing violence on stage. He is Honorary Professor at the Latvian Culture Academy, former visiting Professor of Artistic Research at the Theatre Academy of Helsinki, and currently University Lecturer in Acting at Tampere University. He serves as Artistic Director of the Finnish theatre company Teatteri Metamorfoosi, which is performed widely in Finland and internationally. So a very warm welcome, Davide.
Well, thank you. Thanks, James, for introducing me. So yeah, I'm just here next building, working here, teaching at NATU, and I'm happy to be here today because, I mean, we are so close and it will be nice that we increase collaboration between the two departments. I think we are dealing with similar questions. Hello.
Hello.
Today I will present one specific research that we are conducting at NATU. It's actually a new research. As James was saying, my previous one was about representation of violence on stage, performing violence. It was part of my postdoc. And now at NATU we started this new research which deals with digital technology. Now, why this research, first of all? Let's say, theater has a long history of bringing technology on stage, and all the time there was a kind of tension between the traditional one who say, no, technology is, doesn't do anything, and the others were saying, no, technology, we need to bring on stage the technology that we are dealing in our times. It's quite interesting that if you are familiar with the European history of theater, but the Greek tragedy, which is considered like the birth of European theater, had this Deus ex machina concept. And actually the Deus ex machina is like the divine, means basically the divine appearance which solves the drama somehow. But the funny thing is that Deus ex machina, actually, it was a technological element. It was like a kind of mechanical arm that brought the gods on stage. And the mechanical arm, actually the word Deus ex machina really brings together the idea of technology and divinity together. So the divine appearance on the stage was actually a technological instrument. And I think still nowadays there is a compenetration of divine and technology. I will come back on this later. But now concretely about this specific technology. It started, I was doing a class with our students on Instagram stories, and we had a guest from ULE leading the course, and then I was looking at the results, and I was paying attention to the acting of the students, and I was surprised that suddenly in these Instagram stories that they made, suddenly the way the acting was kind of different than what they were doing on stage. It was much more expressive. And then I was asking them, what kind of technique do you use, or were you conscious? And it felt for me that they were relying a lot on commedia dell'arte technique, or this kind of using archetypes and kind of exaggerated movement. And then I start to wonder, okay, if we think in the history of acting. The appearance of movies 1 century ago radically transformed how actors behaved on stage, because it was the first time that actors could see themselves, how they were. Moreover, at the same time, there were electric lights that were, let's say, invented. So suddenly there was a possibility to, let's say, focus the light. So it was not anymore candle that illuminated everything, but you had a very focused light. So suddenly you could direct the attention of the audience. So all these elements, these technological inventions, transformed the acting. Suddenly actors did not have to compete with external noise, so they could have a more minimal or more intimate acting. So let's say the technological invention of movies and electric light transformed acting. And so when I was watching my students dealing with, let's say, these Instagram stories, and I saw that the acting kind of changed, I was wondering, are we facing a new transformation now? Will these technological, these digital technologies will transform acting? Can we still teach the same acting techniques that were developed the last century? And meaning I'm referring to, if you're familiar with Stanislavski or Grotowski or Jacques Lecoq. So can we still use this kind of acting techniques for the 3rd millennium, or should we invent new practices? And so I suggested in our department that maybe we should start to explore these digital technologies, but not as an instrument for the performance, but more in the sense that to what extent this technology are transforming our understanding of theater, our understanding of the presence of the actor, our understanding of dramaturgy. So it's kind of other way around. And then the other, let's say, event, still at the origin of this research, was during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, a lot of theater makers still wanted to make performances, and everything was online. And there was this show made by the Royal Shakespeare Company, which was The Tempest. And you could see it. It was online, and they used motion capture technique. And so I was there, I went online, it was streamed. And then before it started, you could see the actors putting up the motion capture suits with all this track, and then getting ready. And then when the show started, basically we just switched to the, let's say, avatar or virtual world. So what the machine was rendering, it was rendered real time. But for me, it was such a disappointment, because suddenly I was just watching, let's say, these animated avatars, and it felt like watching a movie, just an animation movie, a pixel movie, and actually a bad one. There were much better ones. So for me, I was wondering, like, what's the point here? Why do I watch this? But at one point, they split the screen, and you could see at the same time the avatars and the virtual world and the actors with the motion captures moving. And that moment where the two realities were juxtaposed, suddenly for me it was again interesting. And that moment I felt, oh, now it's again theater. And then I thought, okay, maybe we should explore that. Now, what do I mean by, oh, this is theater? I think one strength, and here we can agree or disagree, but this is, let's say, one thing that I consider like one strength for theater is this possibility to bring several realities at the same time, superposed. When an actor is embodying a fictional character, there is the, let's say, the reality of the body of the actor and the reality of the stage and the situation with, let's say, the audience. But at the same time, superposed, there is this fictional reality of the fictional body that the actor is embodying and the fictional world that we are evolving with. And so that there is this layering of these two realities. And for me, this is like a strength. It's a strength. And why I think this is important is because I think even in the everyday life, we are all the time dealing with this kind of layering of realities. Even here now, to some extent, I'm talking, I'm not saying I'm doing theater, I'm not acting, but still I'm kind of embodying a role. So, and then I go home, and then I talk to my kids, and suddenly I have another role. And then I call my father, and then I have another role. When I'm with my father, I feel like I'm a teenager, even though I'm 50. But somehow the dynamic kind of got freezed in that time area, where with my kids, I have another attitude. So all these different characters, they kind of live in me. And I think we experience this kind of changing of role all the time, and I think theater has the possibility to represent this changing. So this is why suddenly, when there was this juxtaposition of the two realities, the motion capture actors with the suits and these avatars, it was theater. I really like, there is this Italian theater director, Luca Ronconi, maybe you have heard him, he died recently, but he was saying, and I like that, he was saying you can bring everything on stage. You can take this and whatever you want, but that's not enough to make theater. So, meaning that you take something on stage, but you need to find a way that it becomes theater, so that there is this object, but then there is also this other layer about this object. Or there is this person, but then there are these other layers of this person. So that was what I proposed to our department. Okay, let's use the motion capture technology as a way to explore how this digital revolution might transform our understanding of theater. But then let's not use it as it usually used in game industry or film industry. Basically what's happening there is that first the actors, they embody the scene, they record the data, and afterwards these data are processed and transformed into avatars, either for the game or the movie. But here I propose, let's do that it's real time. So at the same time you have the actors moving, and at the same time we have the virtual world behind, exactly like in this image, as you can see. And so we have the two worlds, and let's see what is happening with that. And that's how we started. And what I would like to do now is just show you the trailer of our first workshop, when we made the first experimentation. So you have a first idea of what we did. I need your help. I lost. Where are the videos? Where the? Is this here? Yeah. Okay. Double click. It disappeared. So that was our first workshop that we made in collaboration also with the students from TAMK, from the interactive design. So all the avatars world that were that you saw were made by the students there in TAMK. It was very interesting collaboration also to realize that actually there is a very interesting clash happening, let's call it technicians and artists. Because let's say that the students and also the technicians making like this virtual world running, they wanted to make it very smooth. And let's say the artists were more interested in the glitches, the moment where the machine fails. And that was very interesting to see the clash where the now I use the word technician just to simplify the relationship. Like the technician will no, we should not see when the machine fails. The artist will say, no, let's show when the machine fails. So this idea of making the technology invisible and the idea to make visible the technology, that's an opposition. I will come back on that. Of course, I'm talking, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, otherwise I just go on. One thing that in this first trailer, in this first workshop, as you could see from the trailer, we tried several things. We tried, let's say, different bodies, kind of non-human experience. We tried to see how we can create glitches. Also, with this experiment, when there was this kind of rock character, if you remember from the trailer, at one point we took away the screen and we wanted to check if the audience, what happened to the audience when the focus goes back just on the performer and the avatar is taken away. And something that was quite surprising, it was with me, but then I asked to several people in the audience, and it seems that it was kind of shared experience, is that at the moment when we took away the avatar behind, somehow the audience, even though they saw only the actor, but they still saw the avatar on the actor. So they kind of, through the imagination, compensate, and they could still see superposed on the actor that transformation. And actually, I'm writing now an article about the imagination and how it works. Because, let's say, from an actor's perspective, imagination is considered like the core of the world. You need to stimulate your own imagination in order to make alive the fictional character. But in this case, you don't need to use imagination. It's already there. The fictional character is already there. So the world with, let's say, with the body is different. Instead of going from inside in order to find the skills to transform your own body and make the audience believe that you are someone else, here it's more, it's already there. and the audience takes it. You don't need to make believe the audience that the character is alive. It's already alive. It's already existing. So then the work with the body has a totally different approach. But what was very interesting in this first workshop, three things became very strong. One is from the students, the desire to explore different bodies. Okay. The second was to explore the niches when the machine breaks the limits. But then the third one, and that was very surprising, is that all the improvisation that the students made, I mean, all the scenes that you saw were based on playing with the avatars, playing with the situation and creating something. But somehow they all dealt with solitude. It was very striking, this sense of solitude and loneliness that came out. And then it was not clear for us, let's say pedagogues, why this sense of solitude or loneliness emerged so strongly in this improvisation. And we were wondering, is it because of this technology, the sense that it established connections, but at the same time you are very isolated in your connections. So is it something embedded in this type of technology, or is it these students were accepted during the COVID? So is it something that these students, let's say, one part of their life, an important part of their life, has been during the COVID, they've been, let's say, traumatized by that, and they're still kind of dealing with this sense of disconnection. We don't know. But that's something that we are wondering and exploring. So after this first tryout, we went on with the research, and we tried to focus on different elements. And we had small labs, meaning the workshop, the trailer of this workshop, it was a workshop that lasted 3 weeks. After that, we had smaller labs, which last 2 days, where we just focused on something without any expectation. In this first workshop, somehow there was an expectation that we get some pedagogical output. In these labs, instead, we just take one element and we try. So the first lab was about morphing. Can we morph the avatars? Can we create interaction that the collecting of the data is not just about animating an avatar, but we can also transform this data to, for instance, interact with the music. So the person moving in the space is also affecting the music or whatever thing you want to connect with. The second one was about stage fight and changing perspectives of the camera. I don't know if you noticed, but in this trailer, what we saw on the screen, except in one point where it turned, that it was mainly frontal. So the position of the spectator was the same for the stage, but also for the screen. And we didn't realize in the first place, but afterwards we thought, oh, that's exactly how it is in theater. And actually, maybe this frontal relationship also affected the way scenes were built, the dramaturgy, because we went back in a traditional theater setup. So it created the expectation of scenes, meaning a beginning, kind of confrontation, obstacle, a development, a middle, and then a resolution at the end. So we thought, can we change this relationship and can we transform the narrative or the dramaturgy? So basically, that was the biggest element for the second workshop, and I will show you some images from the second workshop. We thought, can we transform the narrative? Can we transform the dramaturgy? And so we thought, let's go with the open world, the concept of games, open world. So not having a telos, a goal to achieve, but just exploration of a space. And so we come up with the idea that maybe these avatars, they are not characters that usually, let's say, in a traditional theater, when a character comes on stage, she, he, or they come on stage because they have something, they want something out of that. So instead of having this idea that you come on stage because there is something that you want to discover something, you want something for reestablishing your crisis. Instead of having that, let's approach this avatar as element of unconsciousness. And just you encounter unconsciousness. We were very much influenced by Stalker, the movie by Tarkovsky, where you enter in the zone. And actually, it's a kind of idea that in the zone, you are facing yourself. So that was, so we thought, okay, let's change completely the approach. And let's see if this affects the dramaturgy. I will show you now a longer video, it's 5 minutes, where there are different scenes from this second workshop. So I think you understood the camera is placed behind one of the performer, and you follow this point of view. and this is more like a cinematographic where there is a virtual camera, so you have an object like this, and that becomes the point of view. Let's stop here. Before I continue with the third part of this presentation, why we do this, do you have any questions or comments or?
I'll lead off with a question. Was there someone who had a question? Okay, Shimon, I'll come to you.
I don't need that.
The
Okay.
recording needs you to say.
Oh, okay. So, hi, my name is Shuman, and thank you very much for this session. The works are really interesting. So, I am from media studies background. I'm doing my PhD and working with virtual reality. What I found really interesting here, when you mentioned about the glitches, like the actors were looking for the glitches in the technology when the technology fails, and so my question is this is what I have also came across, since I am not from the technical side, so I was always interested to see when the technology breaks or fail, and my expression kinds of take it forward, because when we try to project, because my ideation is that when we try to project reality to technology, so it does not project reality as it is. Technology always enhances certain things. So in your case, I was thinking, does the actors ever feel since they are looking for these glitches at times during their performances, so do they ever feel being limited or being enhanced by the technology, what they are doing?
Yeah. That's a very tricky question, because there are several elements which are compenetrating. One aspect, and that's also an element of why we're doing this research, is that actually this type of technologies kind of make us perform. That's the idea, is that we are not using them, but it's them making us perform. I think nowadays it's so trendy, the biohacking, where you can track with the ring or with a smartwatch, you can track how you sleep, how you breathe, the heartbeat. And I see also some friends of mine who are using this kind of technology, how they become much more aware of that, and they start to really be much more sensitive, and suddenly I feel that there is a change in their everyday life behavior, because suddenly they see this data about themselves. So I think that's a very evident example how these technologies start to make us perform. In this case, for instance, you can see how immediately, as soon as the performers see themselves on the screen and the avatar, oh, they start to move. So this technology either enhances the performativity of the user or lowers the threshold to kind of go into the performativity, but somehow, yes, it facilitates, for sure, the performativity. But then there is another element, like for instance, this motion capture, I haven't reached that level, but it's really neoliberal thinking at its best, because we are not anymore interested about the identity of the performer. We are just taking the movement, recording the movement, and then capitalizing on this movement for some effect in a game or in a movie. So actually the identity of the person is not anymore important. So as artists that we would like to kind of be also political agent, how we relate to that. And the glitches might be a moment where suddenly the students felt, oh, here I have some agency. If I look where the machine fails and I reveal the technology behind, I'm not just an instrument of the system, but I have maybe some agency. So probably there is on one hand a desire to use this because it does enhance performativity, it does enhance the experience of the stage, but at the same time there is an attempt to resist to that. And I was also very much influenced by Donna Haraway, Cyborg Manifesto, the Xenofeminist Manifesto also. And both they talk about using technology to transform narratives, to reimagine our way of being. And here I still feel that we are failing, because even though motion capture, the narrative behind motion capture is like, well, this is infinite potential, you can do whatever you want. Then if I look at the result, most of the time it's just a repetition of heteronormative structures, like a muscular man saving tiny women. And it seems so hard to escape that. So, and that was also our attempt, like, can we use the technology to explore alternative narratives? But I feel that we are not yet there. That will be the goal for the third workshop. The future labs that I would like to do, it's about post-humanism, ableness, and feminism or decolonized body, and see how we can use this technology to really unlock these structures.
Okay, thank you for the question. Thank you for the response. There is another question flooding in from the periphery of the space.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on the last part that you just mentioned about how you can use the technology to break or underline these heteronormative expectations or structures. There was actually, there are these videos about mods being made in games where they have basically changed the character models of, for example, men and women. And those are really revealing in that how the mocaps have been made in these really heteronormative ways, and when you change them, you can really see that actually that process when it happens. So I was also thinking about the workshop 2 video, so that could be sort of like a space for exploring gender, for example, if the avatar sort of is presenting different than the actor, for example, something like that.
Please send me with the link for these videos. That would be really because we are trying, and Kari had this question also at the presentation of last workshop. We are still dealing, and it's not in the previous one I did not mention, but in the previous workshop we actually went to see it and we made a scan of the performers. So actually they had their own avatars, and at first they were kind of playing themselves, but then they could start to play also someone else, someone that they knew from a classmate. And then we also switched, like there was a couple on stage, a male and female, but then on the avatar, they were animated with the opposite avatar. And it was very surprising. At first, they were kind of acting, and so it was very hard for us not to project some kind of gender reading. But then the second improvisation, they just danced. So they were not at all thinking, they were just thinking about the body and how moving. And suddenly it felt that, oh, now we are escaping that. But it's very tricky. It's very tricky from the performer point of view, but also from the spectator point of view. And yeah.
Yeah, hi, Kari here, the one who was just talked about. Yeah, I saw the second workshop thing that you guys had, and it was interesting. And I've been mulling about the question because I did point out that I felt a need that there's some kind of gender play, and it's a difficult question because at the moment in these two first ones you have also had like characters that are in a sense static. So if the actor doesn't move, neither does the character or anything in them. Whereas there can also be like dynamic characters where the actor just stays put and some type of, pixels go around, or suddenly a pair of boobs grow or get removed and they become manly or female or whatever. So that like the characters themselves on the screen change, even though the actor isn't changing. But then it becomes, when does it become theater, is when we notice that the actor notices that something has changed. And then again, we are like, oh, okay, now it's interesting, because now the actor realizes that the character they're portraying is of another gender or another whole entity. So then it becomes like theater to me. But yeah, that was what I wanted to comment. And then I had a question. You also had this Wojciech game kind of thing in your last part of the second presentation, where you gave a microphone to the audience, and then the audience gave directions to a person who had a controller, and then moved the camera around instead of giving the controller to the audience. So you created this like extra step of like me telling Paul to click something instead of me myself clicking the thing. So how did you come about that, and what were you exploring in that situation?
So I will answer first to the first. We wanted to explore the possibility to morph avatars, that they change body, and working with ambiguities, let's say. We actually realized that it's much more interesting when the performer has an avatar that it's not so distant. If you have like a bird or an animal or an alien character, it feels very distant, and okay, we can play, transform the body to make this avatar alive, but it stays there. There is nothing, I would say it's easy. But when the avatar is somehow closer to the actual body of the performer, but there is some changes, so this kind of ambiguities, it becomes much more interesting. There is something more disturbing happening, let's say. So from the performer perspective, there is something at stake in trying to act out. Now, for me, that was one element that we wanted to explore, and I don't know if you remember, at one point, two avatars started to morph, they changed dimension, and then one of them also transformed into another avatar. So we wanted to play more of that. Now, we had a limitation that this is so technically so demanding to make it happen in real time, that the programming was so heavy that it did not work as we wanted to explore. So we saw that, okay, that might help to explore this dimension, but we couldn't go that far. So now we hope now we can find ways to solve that. Then the second question about the interaction with the audience, well, that was another element that we wanted to explore. The idea was how to bring let's say, the audience closer to the stage. So one idea was to have this point of view. So basically with this system, so basically you have the screen, and on the screen there is a real world, and then there is this, we call it volume, basically where the cameras, and inside the volume the performer move, and as long as they are inside the volume, the camera tracks the movement. So we wanted to find a way to bring the audience closer to the volume, let's say, or the virtual space. And with this system, you can basically place a virtual camera behind whatever avatar. So you have the performer here, and there is a virtual camera behind them, which basically shows on the screen what they see. So that's the point of view. That's for one of the scene. Then the other one was more coming from the gaming, where with the remote control you can really travel, and that gives the possibility to travel in a bigger world, let's say. So we wanted to find ways to interact with the audience, and that how the audience can affect the movement. The reason why we had this kind of heavy system with the mic, telling the mic left, right, is that actually the controllers was very sensitive. And we tried first to give the tryout to someone there on the stage, and if the person doesn't have any kind of, is not experienced with that, it's just painful just to watch the person try to figure out how to move. And again, we couldn't design a system that would be much simpler, so that the person would have just full, like left, right, forward, backward, and be completely independent. So this is where we came up with this idea, okay, I give the instructions, they have these 4 words, left, right, forward, backward, and then the audience kind of gets it, and then someone in the audience can play with that. So how just trying to find solutions with the technical difficulties.
Thank you all for the questions. I can see we've probably got about 10 minutes left in our time, so maybe we'll have time for 1 or 2 questions at the end. But there's another section to your presentation.
Yeah, damn it. Okay, can I finish my presentation?
You can.
Because I wanted to show another video that brings up the last.
You have 10 minutes to watch.
Okay, I got it. Okay. I will change completely world. I will show you a video, and maybe you are familiar with that, maybe for you it's totally normal, but from the theater perspective, from the acting perspective, this is completely raw, completely a radical thing, I think. And I will explain afterwards why it can be connected with the cyborg. So I will present this video. So, just this person is showing how the pygmy flute function. If you're familiar with the pygmy flute, it's basically a piece of branch that makes only one note. And the big question is like, why only one note? Why not to make holes and to play more notes so you can have a melody? Like, why on earth they have just made one note? And that's let's watch it.
Speak to you, and the flute says something like, and you reply to the flute by saying, and all the music you can make with this flute is a conversation between man and his own musical instrument. I think this is interesting, and I underline this and point it out, because not everywhere in the world you can find this characteristic of music production. For instance, I can play. Using the same technique, You know, I'm teaching you how to do it. You should pay me for teaching you. And I usually keep my who made the train? And these trains are not even what they used to be. They have no engine. Oh.
So, at one point in the video, the player says that it's a dialogue between the flute, the instrument, and the person. And for me, this idea that there is a technology like the flute here, and it's not that I use the technology to express something, but it's a dialogue between me and the technology. And it made a click because, let's say, from acting perspective, always there is a view that okay, I have to use my technique to make this character alive. So it's me becoming something else, and I use the technology or the technique that I know to make it as best as I can. And here it's very interesting because they say it's a dialogue between me as a performer and the technology that I have here. And I become conscious. I'm conscious of myself, I'm conscious of the technology, the flute here, and what kind of dialogue we establish. And I think this is what's happening with the motion capture in this setting, that the actors, it's not just that they are acting, becoming something else, like this transformation, which is a big element in theater, this ability to transform, but here there is another level where it's the dialogue. I establish a dialogue between me and the transformation of myself. And it can open a new approach, let's say, to acting. So. Okay.
So, I'll say thank you very much indeed, David. We do have a few minutes, and if I may, I'm going to jump in with one or two questions.
Sure.
First of all, I'm going to ask two questions and try and kind of ask one with a kind of a game studies hat on, and then one maybe with a kind of a theater performance hat on. I guess from a game studies perspective, when we see these kind of virtual spaces, these virtual representations, they often perhaps kind of resemble video games. They look a little bit like video games. But probably at this early stage of development, the performers are really kind of on the surface of the virtual space. There isn't currently that much affordance for the performers to actually change the environment that they're within. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to ask, to what extent have you kind of experimented with the creation of virtual spaces that have an array of objects that the performers can interact with and actually alter, so that the space is a sort of an ecology that's changeable rather than a surface?
Yeah. You mean within this system of motion capture?
Yes.
Well, in this let's say the problem with this motion capture is that we are still at the kind of exploring how to transform this technology. So we are still very. I think it's. I don't think we still master this language. So we are all the time trying out new stuff. It's the problem is that it's like a Pandora box. When we started, we felt, oh, there's this and this and this and this, and we are a little bit lost. Also, okay, which direction to choose, because all of them are potentially interesting. And there is so much that we are having difficulties at the moment to select what are the direction that we should focus on. So what you just mentioned now, what we talked about, yes, this transformation of object and as you described, but no, we haven't.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, just quickly, because other folks might have questions, but a second question is sort of from a theatre point of view, I guess from the perspective of myself as a theatre director that has a background in various forms of audience interaction. We've had the question about the audience kind of giving instructions for the movement of the virtual camera. Have you explored audience delivering instructions not for the virtual camera but for the performers themselves? So audience manipulates performer manipulates avatar?
Yes, so in my very first experiment that we did before starting the collaboration with Tampere, so the very first exploration, we just had the motion capture and skeleton. So we just had the data and this skeleton. But we tried to create, and we made a system where basically there were performers on stage, with the motion capture, and then two spectators who watched only the motion capture, the result, and had a phone, and they could talk directly to the performers and give instruction like, go do that, say this, and then the other one, be scared. So they were kind of using the performers as puppet. And we did that because the first impression that you have as a performer when you work with the motion capture is that the avatar is like a puppet. So you move a puppet. And so we thought, oh, let's put the notion of puppet to the extreme, where also the audience is using the actors as puppets, which are puppeteering the avatars. So it was a kind of triangle exchange. Then the other one, in the other workshop, again, we made a kind of controller with simple task so we could affect the performers. But for the moment, the experimentation of how the audience interact, it's mainly on this level of providing direction for the performers. And then the performers kind of following the direction provided by the audience.
Okay, cool. Thank you. We've probably got time for one question. Is there anyone who has anything that they'd like to ask before we wrap up? Okay, yes. Question over here.
Thank you. Similar to the question that you had with the puppeteering, I wonder if, because with combining the virtual world, you have a interesting idea of allowing the environment to be updated as well. If the audience instead controls the environment, because even in traditional theater, they would technically be able to control the actors, right?
Yeah.
In one way, but never the environment as easily. And here now they can maybe interact somehow with the environment. And have you maybe also looked into that? And if so, what were your what conclusions did you come to?
Well, no, I think this is a great idea. No, we haven't, but I think I will try that, definitely. Find ways that the audience can change the setup. Yeah.
Well, I think that might be a really good note to end on, and certainly, you know, we're hopeful that kind of talks like these provide a space where there can be dialogue between different disciplines that can be mutually informative and beneficial. So,
Okay, can I just say something? But seriously, we are doing these labs these 2 days labs. And if you have something that sparkle and you would like to use this technology to try, please contact James, contact me. We are really open, and we would like to try. We would like also to challenge our assumption about theater or these views. So it's really, this is like an open invitation. Feel free to contact me or James, and let's really make this dialogue happen.
Okay, great. So an invitation has been proffered. So thank you again very much to Davide. Thanks everyone for being here, and hope to see you next time for the next OASIS Lunchtime Talk.
Thanks.